welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome to the community. DJ O always getting us started with the vibes. What's up, bro?
Chilling, man. Thanks for having me as always. It's a pleasure. I'm ready to learn.
Love it. Love it. Man, I seriously could just like listen to you play music all day. When I'm working, I wish you could just be playing the playlist for me.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I got to share some more with you.
Yeah, man. We got the playlist on Spotify. Check out DJ O.
For sure. And I think my info's in the chat too. So
yeah, you got it, man. You got it. Lulu, what's up? How you doing?
Super excited for Thursdays. Welcome everyone to our every Thursday webinar with amazing people in cannabis. This week we were talking about how to get a license. What does that really entail? There's a little bit of mystery around that, and we want to bring our expert panelists on board to share what to really expect when you're trying to get a cannabis license.
Most definitely. So thank you everybody for joining. I see we got a lot of people in the audience. I know a lot of you are excited about the opportunities popping up here on the East Coast. So we brought a great friend of mine. She is not a novice to the Revel scene. She's actually been one of our speakers like 2 years ago and a friend of mine for like the past 7 years. So just giving you guys a quick intro. Yeah, it's been that real. You guys a quick intro into a couple tips that you need to know about winning a license as we start to prep for what could happen or what is already happening in certain places. I want to introduce my good friend, Ashley. Ashley, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm super stoked. Thanks for having me again.
It is.
Miss you, Ashley. Miss you so
much.
I
know.
Our favorite people.
Oh, can't wait to see you in person.
All right, I'm pulling up this presentation now. Hide these notes. Oops. How do I get to presentation? Here we go. Can you guys all see? Ashley, Lulu?
All good here. Yeah.
All right. You just tell me what to do.
All right. Yeah, so I mean, just quick and dirty. Not intended to be a shameless plug, but I think it's always good to know where you're hearing your advice from. So a quick introduction to our company. I started Point 7 shortly after I met Jacoby, actually. So I've now had the company. We're in our 6th year of business. We are 100% women-owned, based in Colorado. We have some team members in California, Kentucky, Ohio, and I'm actually making my way back to New York, which I haven't even shared with Lulu yet. So hopefully I'll get to meet some of you guys in person. We started the company oriented very much around licensing. Prior, I worked with Jacoby at a vertically integrated facility in Colorado. So we had our hands in everything, as he can attest to, whether that was deciding what genetics to grow or what products to develop. So I'm intimately familiar with how these facilities come online and the intensity of operating them. So I started the company at that point. So this was the end of 2015, because everyone in the country was basically looking to Colorado, trying to figure out what we can learn from Colorado. And Colorado did a lot well. There were certainly mistakes made, but I think it was a benefit to every new market since then, because again, there's lessons to be had there. So Point 7 was founded, to help other states and help operators or hopeful operators in other markets understand, the inner workings of these facilities and how to pursue the licensure process to getting these licenses. You can skip ahead, my friend. My background prior to cannabis, I have a background in business. I also have my master's degree in education. So most of my work, even as a consultant, is very educationally based. I love having conversations like this because I don't think that licensing has to be the mystery that it's kind of made out to be. And the industry shifted a lot. There's enormous amount of opportunity right now because states really are prioritizing getting more people into the space and making the industry far more equitable than it's ever been before. I think we have a massive way to go still, to say that correctly. But it's definitely a different space than the one that I got into when it was, late 2013 or early 2014. So my background, like I said, business, education. Now I've been in the industry since then, 2013, 2014, and so I can share all kinds of good stories and war stories as we get to know each other. You can skip ahead. So the rest of this conversation, I want to focus on these 6 points. And they, as you read them, yeah, okay, I need real estate. Yeah, okay, I need community and political engagement. But I want to help everyone understand as best as I can what this really means. And, as much as I can, again, take the mystery out of what licensing is. So these are, in my experience, working with operators in more than 30 states. These are the best practices that I've seen. We've won competitive licenses with our clients in pretty much all over the country: California, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Arkansas, Missouri. There's a long list, West Virginia. So what I'm sharing tonight is based on very real experience. And I can tell you that in doing the work that I've been doing, it's important for our team to go back and look at our successes and our failures to try to figure out, what the secret sauce is. So again, I know on paper these probably seem like fairly basic principles, but as we dig into them, I really want to highlight what I mean by these. So the first part is the application and business strategy. So I'm guessing most of you on tonight's conversation are contemplating a submission in New York or New Jersey. Connecticut's getting kind of interesting. We see movement right now in Mass and Maine. But wherever you're applying, especially if the application is now, I think there's a major misconception about when to start the process. We work with groups all over the place, like I said, and many of them don't seem to understand that the process needs to begin way before we ever see an application. Where a lot of us are sitting on our hands kind of waiting to see what happens in New Jersey right now. And I can tell you that that's not a winning strategy. There's so much information out there already, and there's so many clues about where the New Jersey market is going to go, what kinds of licenses will be available, and what that program is going to look like. It's not cut and dry, it's not fully in stone, but if you read through how the rulemaking process happens and who's involved, there's a lot you can deduce from that. And so what I suggest to all groups is starting as far out as you can. If you're looking to apply in any of those markets and you haven't started thinking about your strategy, you're already behind. So step on the gas starting today and tomorrow, and be thinking about these steps 2 through 6, which we'll come back to in a minute. When I talk about application strategy, the biggest thing is to sit down and recognize that you're kind of in 2 businesses. There's the business of winning the license, and then there's the business of operating the license that you've won. I am a firm believer that what you document in your application needs to be a plan you intend to follow, especially because these are binding documents. But there's a game to be played here, and I didn't write the rules, so this game as it stands obviously didn't come from me. I'm just trying to help you kind of navigate that. A couple of pro tips as you're building out your team and you're starting to think about your strategy. The biggest thing I can recommend is the reviewers that you're writing your application for are just human beings. In a lot of markets, they don't even have formal training for some of their reviewers. So some states are better than others. But I say that because everything that you write about should be written in a manner that addresses your audience. We all learn this in like 3rd grade, right? Like, who's your audience and how do you write to them? How do you speak to them? It's no different for applications. So when you're sitting down and you're starting to pull your people together and your resources together, really studying who the reviewers are and who the key people are that are involved in the licensing process at the state level, that's critically important to getting a win here. We look at who are the reviewers, and if sometimes their names are published, sometimes they aren't. If they're published, like, who are these people? Where did they go to school? What do they do? What do they care about? People have inherent bias. It's just the way it is. So we want to make sure that you are presenting yourself in the most relatable way possible. Because even if a reviewer has a rubric sitting next to them and they're supposed to score you, 0 to 10, the reality is if you say something early on that either distresses the reviewer and makes them raise their eyebrows, or makes them feel very positively about who you are as a team, that can color, and probably will color, the way that they evaluate all of the subsequent sections that they're looking at. So really understand as much as humanly possible who you're speaking to. If they're very well versed in cannabis, be technical, be specific. If they may not have the same knowledge, be thoughtful about how you're explaining technical terms and processes so that they can digest it and they can make sure that they're, that they are, that they understand and that it's reaching them. So business strategy and application strategy is looking at your team, looking at everything you've done, and being very, very honest with yourself about your strengths and your weaknesses. All teams have strengths and all teams have weaknesses. The reviewer's job is to find those weaknesses. So it behooves you, right, to understand them first and to give yourself a chance to address them. The areas where people tend to struggle the most are related to the, financials, and often it's related to team building, because those things take a lot of time. Same with community engagement. You can't fake those things and write about them in 2 months and make it a believable story. So start that process early and recognize that if you're meeting with communities, etc., now you have a much better chance at moving them in the direction that you want and getting their support. Shifting into financial strategy for a moment. So financial strategy it's interesting, it's important, you need to have it to win. There's a lot of operators that I've worked with over the years that I think are kind of naive about the significant expenses that go into operating a facility. So really be candid with yourself and your team about what you're able to bring to the table and what you're going to need to raise. Beyond that, my best advice here is to be thoughtful about the business structure that you're going to pursue. A successful strategy that I've observed with a lot of clients would be, especially for people that are social equity qualified in certain markets, if you want to hold on to the license in its entirety, there's other mechanisms you can explore where you're able to have a real estate partner, as an example, either purchase or lease the property and handle some of the build out costs for you. So you want to understand what these costs are going to be. People ask all the time, what's the average cost for a dispensary? What's the average cost for cultivation facility? It varies based on where you are and how technical and automated or how well designed you're going to get. So be thoughtful about what your vision is and be conservative when you're building out these financials. Give yourself as much time as possible to pull those together. And there's a lot more I could share here. So if people have questions on kind of the financial strategy, please reach out to me. The real estate side, I think, is a bit more black and white. It's obviously checking into zoning and making sure that it's a desirable location dependent upon what kind of license you're pursuing. But remember that you want to consider latent and hidden costs. So sometimes people put their cultivation facility way outside of a city, and they don't truly account for the time it's going to take to deal with all of those deliveries and distributions, or that, hey, you're way out in the middle of nowhere, you're going to have a really hard time staffing that facility and getting good talent there. So understand that there are other costs besides just the real estate specific ones that you see on paper. If you're going out way into the boonies, there's merit to that sometimes, but recognize that if you need to draw significant talent to a place that might not be desirable as far as living goes, or might be really far away, that you need to factor those costs into the decision that you're making. So to me, real estate is bigger than just the footprint of the facility that you're going into. Professional team with cannabis experience. So we run into this one a lot, and the question is usually, what's going on with, oops, sorry, I just saw your message, Jacoby. So team and cannabis experience, like make sure it's balanced, professional and cannabis at the same time. You definitely need both. You can certainly like supplement, where you're missing team members on the inside track. You can definitely get consultants and partners, etc. there. Community and political engagement, I touched on this one a little bit, but you can never be early enough on this front. You want communities saying, if I have to have cannabis in my town, I want this group there because I trust them and I know them and I understand like what they're bringing to our town. And I understand that they recognize what we're looking for as a community. And then the last part is the compelling and complete application. So I always put this last because the application is a compilation of all of the other work that you've done. Remember to use the application that comes out as a guide. Use the same words they include in the rules, like use the headers from the application to organize your thoughts. Make your application very easy to read, and as much as you can mirror the RFP that the government's putting out there, because it is absolutely your playbook and it's what the reviewers have been trained to score. So sorry about that. I rushed a little on the end, but I'm here to answer questions and whatever tonight or into the future.
Thank you, Ashley. It's hard to cut you off because I feel like you're just dropping gems all over, and I want to give everybody else a chance to drop some gems. So I want to invite Amber and Rob to join me. Seun's going to be with us in a little bit. While you guys are coming, yep, there we go. What's up, Rob? How you doing?
Kobe? Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. What's up, Amber?
Hey, what's up?
How you doing? Where are you at, Amber?
I'm in Oakland, California.
All right, all right. So for our audience here, if you guys could just give the 30-second, no, I said 30 seconds, a 30-second overview, which does not do justice to all that you guys can do, of where you guys are coming from here.
I'll start. My name's Rob Pisa. I'm a partner and I'm the co-chair of the cannabis law group at Schotz. Schotz is a full service firm with offices all the way down the East Coast. I've been in cannabis since 2013, and I specialize in regulatory compliance, application work, and real estate related to cannabis related uses.
Cool. My name is Amber Center, CEO of Breeze Distro. We're a manufacturer, distributor, delivery in California. We have a shared manufacturing facility for social equity operators, the first of its kind in the country. I'm also executive director and co-founder of Supernova Women. We're a nonprofit 501c3. We work to basically break down barriers for Black and Brown people in cannabis.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. So I have this thing about Amber. I really don't understand when she sleeps because she does like 100 things. And I want to understand in the times that you're awake, which is probably like 20 hours a day, what were the keys to you guys getting Breeze Distro up and running? Because you guys kind of went a unique route here.
Well, not really with Breeze. So we have like operations throughout the state. Our headquarters is here in Oakland. We do have two manufacturing facilities in Oakland. One is a shared manufacturing facility, what I was talking about before. It's actually funded by the city of Oakland. It's for social equity operators. And we have a distro hub down in LA. But yeah, so we basically are the premier Black and Brown and social equity distributor. So we carry a number of different Black and Brown social equity brands and make sure that we're creating space for folks on retail shelves and really building up the infrastructure to support Black, Brown, and social equity brands utilizing programs that the city of Oakland has put together, and then helping other cities kind of figure these things out too. So, you know, just working to lower barriers.
Right on. And Rob, you've worked with a number of applicants. I think you've said from Illinois to New Jersey. You can name them all. What are some of the similarities that you've seen in some of these applications that come in very strong? Rob, I can't hear you.
I got you now.
I thought it was.
No, that was me. That was me. This is my first Zoom call. So Ashley hit on it perfectly. So what you want is you want a combination of people who have real life experience in the cannabis industry, operating in connect. You know, if you're going for a dispensary license, you want someone who's run a dispensary before. You want that coupled with professionals who know how to raise capital, get a business off the ground, and that's really where I see the magic happen. A lot of times, you know, some people, they'll have the real estate, they'll have the financials, but it's so key to have that experience in this industry. And if you don't, you need to add people to your team who have it.
Got it. So I've found that a lot of people find that the pandemic makes many things very difficult. I won't argue that, but it also opens up a lot of opportunities. Like instead of having a Revel event in New York City where we're stuck with just New York people, I shouldn't say stuck, those are my people, but now we can reach people all over, and you can actually build a network of people in California much easier, right? Like Clubhouse is popping now. You can go find growers and build relationships. And I'm curious how people on the East Coast that might have no connections to people in existing markets can even start that process. How can they find some of those existing operators?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question, and you hit on it. It's expanding your network. I mean, I don't think you can survive in the cannabis industry without building a key network of people who know what they're doing, and maybe they're not, you know, the cultivator you're looking to partner with, but maybe they know someone who knows someone who they can put you in touch with. And you hit it with saying that, you know, the pandemic presents a different opportunity, right? We don't have these barriers anymore of going across state lines, getting on a plane to meet people. You can do it this way. You can do it through Clubhouse, like you mentioned. And I think that start expanding your network immediately, like right now, especially if you're looking to apply in New Jersey. I mean, yesterday, you know, get a copy of the old application, go through it, see where your gaps and your holes are, and start networking to meet people who are going to fill those gaps to help to build out your application.
And luckily for everybody, we have somebody representing the West Coast with us today, an expert operator. I also want to understand, Amber, you guys have a shared facility for social equity applicants. So beyond that, not saying that's not a lot, beyond that, what do you guys do to build that community engagement before you got a license and then currently?
So I've been an operator since 2015. I was in the industry even before that, working for someone, but I'm an advocate, as I mentioned. I'm a executive director, co-founder of Supernova Women, and really, like, I've built up my network and gotten to know people and meet people from my previous job or the job that I had when I moved to California, which was working for an edibles company, and then becoming an advocate. I also actually did work for a consulting company where we wrote applications for different groups. So I learned how to write a winning application, basically, learn how to write applications for processing, for growing, for dispensaries. So when it was time for me to apply for my license, let's see, California started licensing in 2018. So it wasn't necessarily something that was new to me. I'd already been in cannabis for a while. I had run a dispensary at that point. I had gotten an on-site consumption permit, which was the first, like, in Oakland. So, but really it was just a matter of me working for other people and learning the ropes, and then taking all that information that I've learned and then just applying it for my own businesses and myself.
I think even all of that to say that you also have built such great relationships with people that if you're talking about cannabis in Oakland and you don't know Amber, then like you're clearly not talking to the right people. And I feel like just your presence is so deeply felt in that community that to do that in any other place, if you're in New York City, if you're Manhattan, Brooklyn, whatever, if you can be that influential and that connected with people, it's going to serve you well. I think as long as you have a genuine ethos.
Yeah, definitely. I really just ride for my community and ride for Black and Brown people. And I just do everything that I can to make sure that I'm lowering barriers of entry for folks and making it easier for people. And me as an operator, I already know the barriers that we face. I'm a queer Black woman. So you know, I see what the industry is like and what it's been like, and how hard it is for a small business to get started, and just constantly in the ear of you know, city council members, congressmen, congresswomen, senators, regulators, really just legislators and folks, constantly letting them know what we're dealing with. You know, today I had a meeting with the city of Long Beach as well as the city of San Francisco. And yesterday I was talking to the mayor of Emeryville, you know, just constantly telling them, hey, this is what's wrong. Hey, this is what you need to fix, you know? And we just need people like that, people that are going to be vocal, not just speaking on about them and their business, but that really has a community lens. Because really, when I'm talking about the barriers, like these are barriers that I still face too. So I'm just really amplifying the message of my community, and I get included naturally. And I think that's the really important part of being not just a business owner, but also an advocate, is when you're working to break down barriers like that, you're not just helping your community, you're helping yourself too.
Yeah, I love that you made the connection to being an advocate, because I don't know, this is probably a sympathetic crowd, but it goes without saying that this industry is built by advocates. And if you are an entrepreneur or business owner in this and you are not advocating for people to get out of prison, for patients to get access to their medicine, to create generational wealth for these communities that have been ravaged by the war on drugs, like, it's really hard for me to sympathize with your ethos going into these. Now, once again, I'm a bit biased and we probably have a sympathetic crowd here, but I think it's important, and it shows up in your application in the way that you present it. So before I ask my next question to Ashley, I want to encourage the audience, if you guys have specific questions, please use the Q&A, and I'll try to get through some of them. But a tough barrier for a lot of people is going to be real estate. And in places where I would say the regulation isn't defined yet, or it is, right? How do people start to think about where they're going to set up shop? Because you might have a good community, a good network in your specific neighborhood, but that doesn't mean that you can afford that real estate. And so maybe you have to go across town. Maybe I'm just curious, how do your clients think about planning for real estate, and also how do you afford it? Like, how do people make these numbers work?
Yeah, it's an awesome question. And yeah, I think we're seeing some changes. I mean, I remember when Ohio's first application process came out a few years ago, you know, there was like a $750,000, actually it started at $1.5 million cap requirement, and you had to have all your real estate and all of these things. And, you know, people started firing back, like, these barriers are blocking specific groups of people. Like, you can't do that. We're not on the right track. And so there has been reform in that area. I don't think we're where we need to be, but it's definitely advancing a bit. I mentioned briefly, I know I was kind of rushing through a little bit, but, you know, a couple of considerations. To answer your question about, I have this great community where I know everyone and it's a place that I'm passionate about, but it's really expensive and I don't know how to get in there. Versus I could go to this other place that's more affordable, but I don't have the relationships. There's no perfect answer for that. You know, as best as you can, you have to figure out what the value of those relationships are going to be to you winning your license. And in some cases, you know, not everybody can open up shop in the middle of New York. Like, we know that. So, and that is what it is. And that's an unfortunate reality of how real estate works in some of these cities. But what you can do, and what I have seen many of the groups we work with do successfully, is identify partners that are interested in the real estate piece. There's still a lot of people that don't want to invest in the plant and don't want to touch the plant because some of them can't. You know, they're public officials, they're teachers, they're lawyers, they're doctors, and there are actual concerns that have some merit to getting into this. But investing on the real estate side does a few things. One, it can obviously help you get the capital you need or turn the capital that you need towards real estate. And two, it can help you hold on to the licensed asset without having to dilute yourself and give up a whole lot of equity. So it's not a perfect formula. I think every situation is really different, but you know, considering that option definitely helps a lot of people. And the second is there's a lot of markets coming up now that they're not going to require you to have the license or have the real estate, excuse me, under your as an asset yet. You can have a letter of intent, which sometimes suffices and shows that you have access to the real estate if the market is, or if you are awarded the license. And the third tip might be 2020 was a rough year for retail. We know that. I mean, retail got slaughtered everywhere. There are a lot of business owners who own traditional retail shops, boutiques, convenience stores, whatever, that might be, you know, a little burned out on running whatever business they had. And so I have had clients successfully approach business owners saying, hey, I love where you are. I love your location. Do you have any interest in moving out of the space that you're in and partnering with my team and I on this other thing? And it's actually worked really well. So don't give up on your neighborhood if it's important to you. And be, you know, if you are going to go down that route where you're speaking to a current business owner and trying to get them to close shop and team up with you, like, go into that with a bit of a plan and a presentation for sure. But don't count that out. Again, 2020 was tough and people are, use that to your advantage in a way. People are looking to explore other options and you might be surprised who in your exact community is interested in this and interested in contributing their real estate to your business model.
And I just want to jump in to talk about the value of partnering with someone who actually owns real estate. If you've seen what happened in New Jersey, it's still going on through the 2019 applications, which were supposed to be given out in November, December of that year. And now it is February of 2021. And those licenses have still not been given out. And the only counsel that we've gotten from the Department of Health is you have to maintain all of the requirements that were in the original RFA, one of which was site control, your real estate. So if you partnered with someone who actually owned their real estate, you're in good shape. There's a lot of people, I have clients who've been sucking wind for years trying to maintain the site control. And Ashley brought up a good point. You don't need to own the property. You don't need to lease the property. And in New Jersey, a binding letter of intent has satisfied that requirement because you're locked in. It shows you have an option to get it when you need it. And it's a more cost-effective way of doing it as opposed to signing up for a lease or actually looking to buy a piece of property if you don't partner with someone who already owns it.
Yeah, just building on what Rob and Ashley both mentioned, it is really important to have real estate partners because especially now with COVID, in the beginning of COVID, especially, people got kind of scared investing in cannabis and they like paused for a few months and everybody was really worried about what was going to happen. And, you know, when that happens, there's no more capital coming in, so it's really hard to raise money, and then that equates to how it's hard to pay your bills and hard to do all this stuff, especially if you have a dispensary that's sitting in the pipeline and not moving along, and you still owe rent on it. I have 2 dispensary projects in San Francisco that have been going through the process now for almost 3 years. And finally, I'm getting ready to be awarded the permits, but it's been a long, tough 3 years. And if we didn't have these real estate partners in place to kind of help us navigate this, it could have been a catastrophic nightmare of hemorrhaging tons of cash. But luckily, we've been able to really avoid that because of the relationships that we built and the partnerships that we have. So definitely very important to make sure that your landlords or the building owners are somehow, you're invested in them, they're invested in you, and that comes through how you structure your deal.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of things really become clear. that once again, the relationships is so important, right? Finding partners or people with the network that can do this is valuable. Understanding what could happen when licensing really starts to open up for some of these states is you could be sitting on this for years. So make sure that you set yourself up for success. And then another thing I heard from Ashley that I really like is like, you got to be creative. You got to be scrappy. You got to just be kind of like solution oriented and just figure out the next play. Because I'm sure, as all three of you can attest, it never goes exactly as you planned. And like things are going to change. It's going to suck. And you just have to figure it out. And real estate being one of the worst things for you have to figure out. But I do have a question from the audience here, and it comes down to raising capital. Like that's going to be one of the most important things for a lot of business owners in this game. I'll read it verbatim. Are there institutional investors that will invest in cannabis startups? What is the best way to raise the necessary capital for a dispensary? Is it mostly friends and family to start? So I think there's a lot of ways to unpack that question. Let's just say for either your clients or yourself, Amber, what are the most common ways that you see companies capitalize?
So that question was pretty loaded, just simply because you're not going to like, especially if you've never raised money before, you're not going to come out the gate and be like, I need $5 million, because people are going to laugh at you, you know? So it's best to start this out and raise your money in tranches and figure out like, you know, you get to this milestone, you raise this much, you get to this milestone, you raise this much. And really by doing that, you're also not selling off too much of the equity right away in the beginning. So, you know, there's levels to the permitting process, right? Like first part is getting your application together. That's a range. If you hire a firm to write your app or a consultant, you need attorneys to help you kind of form your company and be able to even take on investment like that. There's an associated cost with that whole phase of the process. And then you also have to nail down your real estate at that time, depending if they require that or not. So that's also an investment. So you figure out like how much that cost is, and you raise for that amount. And then once you get that and you secure that, then you start raising for the second amount, which is typically more of the waiting game, or it's up until the point you get your permit and you raise money, basically paying rent and attorney fees, keeping the lights on, that kind of stuff. Really, you might have to pay a consultant to help you do community outreach, those kinds of things. You raise money up until the point you get the permit. Then when you get the permit, your valuation goes much higher. And then that's when you start raising money for your build out, your operating capital, all of those things. And it's way way easier to raise money once you have the permit in hand, let me tell you. So yeah, definitely think of it as you're taking this project and you're breaking it down into pieces. That way it's also much more manageable for you to do it that way, and it's smarter because you're saving money by doing it that way as well, and not just selling off half of your company off a jump.
Yeah. And I just want to add that even if you bring in external resources to help you, don't underestimate what you already bring to the table, right? Like you might already be in the community and kind of leverage some of that to build the story to get some of that early capital. I want to introduce Seun. I hope I'm saying it right. He is a dispensary owner, I believe, in 2 different states. We're just kind of addressing right now how people are going about raising capital. So maybe if you want to just give a 30-second intro and talk about your story trying to get funded.
Yeah. Hey, guys, my name is Seun Adedeji. I'm the founder and CEO of Elevate Cannabis. We're a multi-state operator in Oregon, and we have stores in Massachusetts. My story, I guess my path to the cannabis industry is it's just sweat equity, right? When I first started, I only had $50,000 and a dream. I slept in my shop for a year. I built out my location myself. Everybody asked me like, were you crazy? I felt like I was crazy, right? I was crazy enough to believe in my dream and my vision, and it was more of like execution, right? Everybody. I tell people I had a pirate mentality. I had one eye patch and I always could see in one eye. And being young and naive gave me the ability not to think so much about the failures or the downside of things. I was more of like, it was just execution. It was execution mode. And being so young, it gave me the energy and the audacity that I needed to keep going when times got tough. And we pivoted, raising my first capital. When I did the first raise, it was friends and family, right? Everybody said no to me initially. I only had half of that money and I needed some more money. So what I did was I started this process when I was 21. I got rejected for 2 years. Getting into it was the hardest thing. It's like seeing a hot girl that just keep saying no to you, right? It was embarrassing. It was like, oh my God, like this sucks. And it was frustrating because I read the laws. I understood what I needed to do to get into this industry. But everywhere I went to lease a property, they would say, oh, no, you are 998 square footage away from a K-212. Oh, no, this building has a federal loan on it. So because of the federal loan and because you guys are still federally illegal, we can't lease to you unless you're willing to buy this property outright. So there was just different obstacles that regular businesses do not face that I had to face. And I had to be able to pivot and understand that, okay, this no is not definite. I could still make this happen. And I'm a stubborn person. So if you tell me no, and I really want, I'm gonna go get it. Like, I'm gonna find a way. We're gonna make it happen. Whether it's duct tape and everything, it might not look as good as yours, but I'm gonna get mine. So I went there and, like I said, being in my shop, sleeping, it gave me a lot of humility. It humbled me a lot. And understanding that you can't do everything yourself. You need a team. And I had an imposter syndrome when I started this journey because I'm a high school graduate, right? I didn't go to college. I didn't, have like any education, like write a business plan. I had a one-page business plan. Be profitable. That's it. Like, it was like, I need to make money. Like, all this other stuff, I'm not really trying to hear it right now. Like, it was that. It's just me being raw and authentic with you guys. It was like, I need to make money. That was it. Everybody talk about, I'm like, how do we make money? That's it, right? So I knew that I could not afford, like when I wrote my business plan, it was like, I need product, I need real estate. What's that going to cost me? What is the product going to cost me to acquire product? What is like my break even? How do I become profitable? Like, those were my business plan. It was just numbers and how do I execute to get to this point? And my other business plan was I needed to read the laws. I needed to understand the laws. And by understanding the laws, I was able to leverage and go out and execute on the things I needed to execute on. And the biggest one was real estate, acquiring real estate. And once you acquire your real estate, is getting the city approval, getting the state approval. That takes some time, but we were able to make it happen. Long story short, thank you for having me here.
That was a great intro. Way to hop in. No hesitation. I have another question from the audience, kind of on a different topic that we've spoken about a little bit, but what's the first step to starting to talk to the local government, right? In the question here, like, do you go straight to the mayor of the town you want to set up in? Do you go with a sales pitch right off the bat? What do they generally want to hear in order to get them on board?
It really depends on what your objective is for reaching out to the city that you're in. What are you going as? Are you going to advocate on behalf of your community? Are you going because you want to help set up a social equity program? Are you going because you're trying to get a permit there? Like, it really depends. And then also, like, so let's say you want some change to happen in the United States. Like, you're not going to go to the president because, first of all, it's really hard to get to him. Second of all, he's not going to know what to do because he actually doesn't do anything, you know, except go around and like wave. So you're going to want to go to the people that actually work and make the difference and can do something for you. So for instance, here in Oakland, it's not a huge city. Like I go and I speak to city council, and lots of times the city council people are too busy. So I know all of their staff, you know, their chief of staff, you know, their policy person, everything. So you go talk to the people that are actually doing the work. And then to get back to the first question, it's like really, it also really depends on what your objective is and what you want to get done. And that's going to determine who you need to talk to.
And if you put your mind to something, it doesn't matter. You just do it. In like the winter of 2018, I was representing clients who were looking for any town to take them. I mean, at that point, they were desperate. So I took a list of every single mayor in the state of New Jersey, and I started literally running a telethon out of my office, calling everybody, emailing everyone, writing letters, just pouring out what I was there to offer them. And it wasn't, hey, I want to set up shop in your town. I said, hey, I'd love to tell you about what's going on in the state and what these businesses can offer your community. And then I got in my car and I drove all over the state and I met with mayors everywhere. And I sat down and I listened. I listened to what they were concerned about. And then I educated them on the New Jersey cannabis industry. And there's a lot of things they didn't know. And then through that education, all of a sudden they started to change their way of thinking, and they started to think, well, maybe this will be a good thing for my community. And then at that point in time, I played matchmaker, and you know, it's a marriage. So I went and looked at my clients and what they had to offer, what those groups, and does that meet the needs of these towns and what they're looking for, and then set up meetings. So you could do anything you want. I essentially cold called people, and you could do it, but go and offer them something. Don't just go to them and say, what can you do for me? Tell them what you're going to be able to offer their community. I think that's an important thing that people need to focus on.
And can I add this to what Rob was saying? I think he made a really great point. And I want to say to any POC out there, not all of us can afford Rob. I knew when I started, I couldn't afford a genius like that. I can't. Right. So
I'm not smart at all, just so you know. I'll show you my SAT scores. Not good.
No, like a genius in the sense of you got your license, your people license, right? That's genius. You were able to play matchmaker. You executed. Is that correct?
I played matchmaker. I got lucky.
Okay, you got lucky, but you did your job. That's a genius, right? I got lucky or not, you played your part, you did your job, and you won. Right? That's a genius. That's kudos to you. Your clients paid you for a job and you executed. That's a lot of audacity. You're being humble. It's tough to get to the position to get a license in the cannabis industry. But what I'm trying to say to all the POCs out there, I did not have that money. When I went to Massachusetts, I didn't have that, guys. In Massachusetts, you need a host community agreement and non-opposition. I got rejected in the city of Boston. I had a location in Boston. When I had my location in Boston, the landlord came back to me and said he did not want to lease to me because his parents did not feel comfortable with cannabis. So and what a host community agreement and non-opposition means is the people have to support you. The community have to support you. The city has to support you. That's how you get a license in Massachusetts. The people have a voice. They can strike you down. Yes, the city officials can overturn it, but it's rare. So you have to get the people buy-in. So I had to pivot. And the way I pivoted was I started focusing on border town strategy. I started looking at smaller municipality. It's not going to give me the revenues like Boston would, but it still gave me a significant amount of money because the smaller towns are only giving out 2 licenses. In the whole city of Boston, those little small community on the border of New York, border of Vermont, border of New Hampshire, giving out 2. Who cares? You're going to get one of the 2. You're winning. You're winning. So that was my strategy. I had to pivot. Now, when I had to go out and talk to the city officials, I went to a place where it was dominantly Republican. It was like 99% Caucasian. It was a dot of black, and it was me. Right? Like, but what I'm trying to say is when you go to these things, understand your strength, understand your weakness. I read their laws. I understood what they wanted. I understood what the town was missing. My job was then to sell them exactly like Rob was saying. I had to sell them on myself. I had to sell the people on the job creation I was going to provide for the community. And I had a track record. So for anyone out there that's listening to this podcast, you don't have to start in a limited license state. When you go to a limited license state, it costs a lot more money. Start looking at saturated states like Mississippi. I don't care. You go to Oklahoma, you go to Oregon. Oregon has a freeze right now. Go to saturated states. And this is why I say you should go to those saturated states if you have little money. The cost of a barrier to get in is lower. Guess what? Once you get in and you gain relationship, you gain experience. Experience is, oh my God, this is a new industry, guys. There's 50 states in the United States. There's about like less than 15 states with some type of cannabis legalization on a recreational level. There's about 36 states with some type of recreational medical program right now in the United States. So if you really want the cannabis industry, you have to be able to understand that maybe the state or the city you're in, you can't afford it right now. That does not mean you cannot afford it later on in the future, but get your base. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It is forever growing. New states are going to be legalized. Get in now while it's hot, while it's new. And as more states become open, you're going to have a network, you're going to have relationship, and you can tap into them to get to the markets you want to go to.
I want to point something out that basically has all of you guys had said in some degree, is that in order to make it in this game, you have to do the dirty work. And I know that sounds so simple and maybe cliche, but a lot of people see the headlines and see the opportunity. And whether it is, somebody with a bunch of cash that wants to just throw it at a consulting company to make it happen, or whether it's someone trying to build something from the ground up with no money, somebody is going to be doing the dirty work. Whether you are paying someone to do the dirty work or you're doing it yourself, you need to go do the things that are uncomfortable, that are gritty, and make it happen. Whether you are calling mayors and driving over there, whether you're going to saturated states like you're saying, or whether you're knocking on the doors of city council and making it happen. Like that stuff, I think, is a lot of people get into this game and don't understand that it is not glorious and it is not fun and it is stressful. And you're going to get rejected over and over and over. And it's the ones that keep pushing through that. And I think the ones that have a strong ethos for why are you doing this, can actually overcome some of those things. And I just hear that resonating in everything that you guys are saying, that I feel like is often forgotten when people are preparing for a license. All right, I have a quick question, and then I have a long question that I need to read while you guys answer the quick question so I can ask it. I have somebody that wants to find a co-founder. How do I ask them to be my co-founder?
That's not an easy answer.
It's like asking someone to marry you.
Yeah.
Do they compliment you? Like, do they compliment you? Like, look at your strength and look at, like, what are you missing in your organization? If you are someone that's good at finance, do you need someone that's good with operation? That's a marriage right there. You got to make sure the skill set that you currently have, like, utilize your skill set, but look at other skill set you're lacking that you're not so good at. A lot of people, like, one thing that I had to learn personally from me was I needed to have enough humility, and I needed to have a lot like enough humility to ask people for help that were better than me at what I did not know how to do. It took a lot for me to get to that point.
So I don't believe in starting businesses without co-founders. So I have a bunch of co-founders, and really none of them are perfect. I guess no marriage is perfect, but none of them are perfect. But you've really got to, there's a lot of things that play into it. You know, if you're a person that stands by your your beliefs and your values very strongly, you're going to want to find somebody that aligns with you there, because if they don't, everything is going to fall apart. That's just not going to work. If you're, you can also, the stuff that Seun mentioned is good. You do have to find folks that complement you, or that are strong where you're weak, and then you have strengths where they have weaknesses. Those are ideal, but definitely on the personality level, you have to make sure that you get along. Also, if you don't, you're going to have problems. So personality goes a long way, and that matters big time. So there's a number of different ways in which you got to make sure that you're compatible. And the dating stage is a long time, like you're about to get into this business. Like my business partner and Breeze, like he and I have been business partners for 5 years now. And trust me, it's been a long 5 years. We have our battles. You'll have the times where you don't necessarily agree on things, but at the end, you have to make sure that you're able to work through these things, and that really just creates a stronger partnership. So, I can't stress enough like how important it is to make sure that you and your co-founder actually get along and can come to understandings. Because when you don't, things end in very messy legal battles, and you don't want to deal with that.
And can I add one thing too, guys? Look, Amber is spot on. I don't have a co-founder. I just legitly just rocked it, right? And I had a lot of failures. I wish I had a co-founder at times, right? But for people that are, if you don't understand your direction, please do not get in bed with people. And if you do get in bed, I tell people, look, while you negotiate your honeymoon, negotiate your divorce. I don't care who you are, whether it's my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister. I will always negotiate my honeymoon, and I would negotiate my divorce. You have to be direct. Like, this is not us, I'm not here to be your best friend. Like, if we're friends, that's great. Like, I love that. I want that. Like, I love everybody. I'm all about peace and love. But at the end of the day, when we're doing business, it is business. Like, take your feelings out of it. It is what is best for the business. I don't need you to like me. I don't need you to love me. We just need to make sure the baby we're taking, it's like having a baby. It's like we need to make sure the baby we're taking care of is healthy, is being fed, and is being fed correctly. And what's really is important is, please understand your reason. Like Amber said it, but I just can't emphasize on it enough. I made a lot of mistakes because I did not have SOPs in place. I didn't understand who we were as a company. I didn't understand who we were. Like, what was our purpose? What is my why? What is our messaging? I didn't understand that. So once you understand who you are, once you understand your business and your why, it will give you a better way to a better direction once you're looking to date. It's like when you're dating a man or a woman, you have a criteria in your mind that you want this person to hit, or you want them to, have certain things. It's just like that with your business.
I would also be weary of anyone who's got a short-term exit strategy, especially in this industry, because I'll tell you what, as soon as you start hitting those first bumps, they're gone. They got to be passionate about it, and they have to be in it just like you. Otherwise, it's never going to work, because if they're already planning, oh, we're going to get this all set up and then we're going to sell it, as soon as you start hitting bumps in the road, that person's gone. So make sure that you find someone who's just as passionate and just as committed as you, because it's a long road.
Yeah, great input, guys. I'm going to move us to the next one. But before I do, I just want to make a comment that as our events at Revel, I love being able to share information from people that are on the ground. We take a lot of pride in that, and like curating the best speakers we can. But one thing that we miss, and we haven't quite gotten right in digitally, is connecting you guys in the audience with other people. And, I can't stress enough that, like, don't try to network up. You can definitely reach out to everybody in this panel, but network with the people in the trenches right next to you, because those are the people that are really going to come through for you and have the same values. We will figure out a way to try to do some digital connection, I guess, because I think it's just so important. I see all these comments of people that want to connect. I'm going to try to squeeze in one or two more questions. Thank you guys for staying on long for the panelists. This one is particularly good. I want to ask, once you have received the license and your valuation was cemented, who was your ideal investor at that point? Specifically for Amber and Seun, like, who are the ideal people for you guys? Who are you looking for?
So I guess it kind of depends on what kind of license and where you're at, right? I'm always, initially in the beginning, I was just looking for money, right? Because I was small, like needed money just to get things ramped up a bit. So it was angel investors. Now I'm at the point where I'm looking for strategic investors. I'm looking for people that can help me, not just through money, because I can find money. Money is easy. You know, I've raised 200K in the past 3 weeks, easy, right? But I'm looking for people that can actually help me grow strategically. So if they invest in, you know, bigger companies, maybe they invest in me and eventually they'll be able to buy me out, you know, maybe 5-6 years down the road, whenever I'm ready, whatever it may be. Or maybe they invest in me and we can figure out some way where I'm getting flour cheaper, or I'm getting, let's say it's a distributor, they're able to move my stuff around the supply chain. They're just folks that can help you grow your business strategically. When you have your plan in place and you know what you want to do, you want to seek out those kinds of investors, because not only can they help you grow your business, some of the bigger investors can actually buy you out in the end.
For me, it's not easy to raise capital. I have, like, for me, it's been difficult, right? Raising the right capital, I would say. And how I go about, like, looking at who I could, like, raise potentially with. Even for me with 4 licenses, I'm telling y'all, it's difficult. Like, for me, it is. I can't speak for nobody else. Like, it's still hard for me. And, you know, for me, it's more of, like Amber said it, right? Strategic, right? Trying to be strategic. And I know, like, our goal is to be publicly traded. Like, I know the direction I want to take my company. I know that we want to continue to expand. And even though we get money, like, people offer us money, not all money are good money, right? Even if you get the money, you got to understand that, who are you getting in bed with? Have you done research on these people? You know, if you give somebody equity in your company, you have to understand that now they have a say-so in your organization, right? Depending on the equity split, depending on how the agreement was structured. You know, I personally would say, when I go look at capital, I try to hold on to as much equity as possible. Like, I have not sold any equity in my company, and I do that on purpose, not because I'm equity driven or greedy. It's because I want to create a company that's truly POC, like African American owned. Like, yeah, like I truly do. I really, like, that's one of my passions, to show that, you know what, we were able to do this. Like, this was possible. So one of the ways I raised capital strategically was by understanding the laws and leveraging it. So my first $1 million I raised, I sold a shelf space, 60% of my shelf space at a market value. For 3 years, I will buy their product at a fair market evaluation. So whatever the market dictate, I will buy it at that price. They can't raise it any higher. And I gave them my shelf space for 3 years. That's one of the creative ways. This gave me the ability not to get diluted. It also gave me the ability to work with a big multi-state operator. And it was $1 million at 8% interest rate. It's all public information. So you guys can even read the agreement if you really wanted to and see how we structured it. Later on, we amended the agreement to make it just a debt loan, right? So, just be careful in the money you take. That's all I have to say. If you try to take on as much debt as possible, and here's why I say debt. Depending on the market you go to, you can make it back. Here's with debt, you get a certain amount of percentage, but you're not giving up equity. Don't be strategic. When you want to give up equity, make sure there's a lot of damn money. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, guys, we talked about how hard it is to raise money, and some of these service providers can be expensive, but many times it honestly is really worth it. If you don't have a good operating agreement, or you don't have things locked up when you try to raise money, or you don't have somebody that's looking over those things with the right eyes, you could put yourself in a really tough spot. I have one more question that is great, and I just want to ask it for you guys, and then we're going to wrap up here. We want to build a social equity program that gives back to underrepresented groups within the community, and to those who have been negatively impacted by cannabis laws. What types of programs and approaches have you seen be successful? And Amber, by all means, plug Supernova Woman.
Social equity is going to be different in every single place. It's no one size fits all type of programs. Really depends on the community, because these programs are very community based, and it really depends on like what's going on in the community and what are the necessities of it. I don't think that there's a great social equity program anywhere, because they're just now starting the conversation of how they actually help the community as a whole, versus picking a few folks out of the community and giving them a risky kind of opportunity in cannabis. Like, here's your cannabis license. Now you have to invest all your own money, and good luck, and hope for the best. Like, that's not really what true social equity is. True social equity is would be taking those cannabis tax revenues and directing them directly into these communities that were harmed by the war on drugs. So what does that look like? That looks like housing grants for people that lost their homes due to the drug war. Tons of people lost their homes because of something happened. Someone went to prison, and as part of the seizures, they took their homes. People's lives were destroyed. Then when things like that happen, people lose their homes, they have housing instability, they lose their jobs, and then poverty rate goes up, and then the whole neighborhood goes to crap, because this is happening at an epidemic rate. Like, this is the definition of what happened in the drug war. So these are the systemic things that need to be addressed with cannabis tax revenues, not so much like, oh, here you go, here's your license. Like, that's a great cherry on the top. I feel like that is this much of what the social equity program is supposed to be, when it should encompass this much. So I challenge everyone on this call to really think critically about social equity programs, how these communities were truly affected by the drug war, and how we can take these cannabis tax revenues and apply it to systemic change.
Hey, thank you, Amber. For me, I come from, I agree with Amber, and this is just all I want to add to the conversation in regards to social equity. We need ownership. Going back to, the protest that took place, and just Black Lives Matter. One thing that I keep seeing consistently is, we organize, we mobilize, and when one of our people die, right, we come together and we chant and we say, hey, Black lives matter. But after all the videos and people, the news stations stop talking about it, after all the, social media stop talking about it, are we still putting our fist up and saying Black lives matter, right? We've had a Black president, we've had a Black mayor, we've had a Black police chief. what are we missing? I'm a history and I'm a data-driven person. What we're missing consistently is financial, economic. Like, we don't have the money. Like, that's why it's so easy for them to kill us. There's different people. Like, when you have money, there's different things you can do. Like, I have attorneys. I've been sued 3 times, and not saying bragging about it, but I've been sued. But if I didn't have the capital to hire attorneys, I wouldn't be able to sit here today and talk about this, right? So the biggest thing we're missing is money. Now, when it comes to the cannabis industry, how do we make money? Now, in Massachusetts, they have 800, in Boston alone has 800,000. They're giving out less than 80 licenses. An average store in Massachusetts right now is making about $50,000 to $100,000 a day. In Boston alone, you have Neta, N-E-T-A, the highest grossing revenue store in the whole United States. In Massachusetts, gross about $300,000 a day. Okay, now we want equity. Equity is giving my people money. It's making sure we have the financial ability to go out and do what we need to do and hire our people, right? So this is how we're going to solve this problem. This is how we're going to solve it. We talk about going out and getting a license. The hardest thing is actually getting a license. One of those pieces of paper is worth about $1 to $5 to $10 million, just a piece of paper. And this is why they're only giving out 80 of them. It's supply and demand. And they want more people, more POC, more of our people to get in, but you have barriers associated to this. You have to be 1,000 square footage from a K212. You have to be 1,500 square footage from a existing dispensary. Now it limits your property acquisition. After that, you start looking into properties to actually lease out. We're still federally illegal. Because we're federally illegal, we can't go out and go just lease any, street commercial. So you have white big corporation with a lot of money say, oh, we'll buy it. We don't have that. An average lease in Boston right now is $100,000 a month. An average span to get your license in Massachusetts takes about 3 years. You don't have to be a mathematician. Just know it's a freaking lot of money, right? So in order to save and to get our people into this industry to really create generational wealth, this is what we have to do. We have to remove real estate as a barrier, right? Remove real estate. Anybody that's POC, social equity, they should not have to worry about real estate. This is what they should do. They should be able to apply for a license if they and get awarded those licenses. It's supply and demand. If there's only 80, you have leverage. You can go out and raise capital if you're a social equity applicant. When you go out, raise capital, because you have leverage, they can't take advantage of you. Your license alone is $5 million. You say, you know what? If someone comes to me right now and say, hey, Seun, I have a license in Boston, I would do whatever. Look, we would be BFFF. I want a license in Boston. So it's like thinking strategically like that. When we're driving for social equity, forget the money. If you guys don't give us money, that's okay. Of course, we want a percentage of tax revenue to go back to, communities that have been harmed the most by the war on drugs. But outside of that, I want businesses owned by African Americans, POCs, people that have been affected by the war on drugs. I want people that have been arrested for marijuana possession to be let out. They should be free, their record expunged, period. But outside of that, it's financial freedom. I don't work for money. I don't even care about money. I care about freedom. I want freedom. And a lot of times when you have freedom, you're able to think more strategically, more creative, and you can execute, you can live life and not have to worry about, can you pay your bill or can you not pay your bill? And by giving more African Americans the abilities to get licensed in this cannabis industry, we are doing a lot of justice, because now they're going to hire people in their neighborhood. They're going to hire people that look like them. And it's not the penny change we see at a lot of other industry. They're going to be making truly going to be making money.
I can't even follow that. I feel like I just want to wrap it up right after that. Dropping fire. I think everybody in the chat is letting me know that we are going to have you back here to speak again for sure. Look, I got to wrap it up. Thank you everybody for staying on late. I really appreciate it. I'm going to just just honestly, like, just thank you guys very quickly. Ashley's been a great friend from the beginning. It's always a pleasure to have you. We are going to share some of the document with what she shared to start in our follow-up email. Amber, love it. Love it. I still don't know any sleep, but I just love everything that you're doing, not only for your company, but for our people. Seun, it was great to have you on here, man. I know you had to come in late and you still made an impact. And of course, Rob, my man, thank you, and Cole Schotz for sponsoring this and making it happen.
Thanks
There's
for
not a lot
having
of
me.
hours in the day, and you guys made it here. Lulu, hi,
Hey.
thank you for staying with us. How you doing?
I'm good. That was really amazing to hear everyone's perspective. And I gotta say, shout out to Seun. I'm actually from Eugene, Oregon, your first dispensary. So I can't wait to when I come back to visit the fam to stop in and say hello if you're still there. So
Yo, thank
when I
you.
got there, yeah, when I got there, we were one of the only Asian families in Eugene back in the late 70s. So the fact that there is a Black man with one of the dispensary owners in Eugene, Oregon speaks volumes. So thank you for being that person.
Thank you, Lulu. I appreciate you. Your swag is on point. I see you with the hat. You're killing it right now.
Par for the course for Lulu.
Yeah, we'll have to share smoke next time I'm in Eugene.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Cool.
Once again, thank you, everybody. Thank you for everybody that joined. I sent a link in the chat. Please go to that link. Please let us know how we do. This is how we communicate with all of our partners and our sponsors. And we want to help our creatives out here. So DJO, we got all of your information on that link. Take us away, bro.